So in this video, we're going to go through variations, and we're going to cover two main types. The first is one that is, I guess, outside the original budget and outside the original scope. And the second one we'll go through is where you've got a budget item and the customer wants to swap it or change it for something else. So we'll start with the first one. It's outside the scope of or budget of the original quote. And we do these by going to the variation screen here and hitting the plus button. And I'm going to do this from the point of view of you've been on site and the customer asks for more downlights in the hallway, for example. So we're really just filling out a form when we're doing this. And this kind of kickstarts the whole process. So giving it a name, this will be the title. Giving it a proposed start date if you'd like, again showing on the document. Delay days, which also gives the customer an idea of how much this will slow you down by. And give a bit of detail. And beyond that, it really becomes just a bit of a mini estimate. So we're saying add items. We'll say downlights. It is perfectly fine for you to use the calculator to pinch takeoffs from the original estimate, or for you to use this takeoff tool to go and count, measure off the plan that you used in the original estimate also. In this case, I'm just going to say, we know how many, there's 3 of them, and the downlights themselves are $50 each. As with all of the purchase ordering, if you add new items, which is exactly what we're doing here, really important that you give it a category. And for these electrical items, ideally we'd have an electrical category here, we'd put them straight back into it. If you're ever presented with a case where you don't, it is perfectly fine to create new categories. And all this will do is create another budget kind of center or cost category for these items to go into. The markup is completely up to you. So this will obviously alter what the variation document shows. The markup is really the only thing in here that doesn't show through directly to the customer, i.e. we wrap it into the total costs. So they're not really across that. Much the same we did with the original estimate. So we're going to say downlights, we're going to say install, and we'll just say it's a lump sum. And again, markup as you like. Lovely. These T buttons reference the schedule. So in the instance like this one, where you want to put a labor or an install item onto your schedule, once the variation is accepted, this is how you do it. Beautiful. I'm going to say save and close. It will give us this variation line, and we'll go through and print it or print preview it to just have a look at what the customer sees. As always, a couple of options. PDF is the simplest, and here's what the customer will see. So any of the customer's details pop in here. You'll have obviously variation numbers and dates up the top, delay days, start dates, all up here. And any information you passed on just goes in this details area. The most critical of all of this generally is the costing side of it. So really transparent as to what work has been going on. And you can kind of get the idea that this really just reflects how much you put in. So if you want to show a lot more, great, just add more lines into the variation. If you want to show less, same thing, just show less. But the markup, as mentioned, is wrapped into these unit prices here. One thing I particularly like about this is the fact that we show the current and proposed contract. And the idea behind that is, rather than the customer getting several variations in a row, and then on the last one they get a bit of a shock, how on earth did we spend this much money? This is kind of front and center the whole time, just to keep it really in their mind. Brilliant. From here, the customer goes and signs it off, and the builder signs it as well. And that's all official. So we'll go back to the variations tab. And I'm going to say it's been accepted. So we'll go into the variation again. very much like purchasing, everything in this variations and also the invoicing later when we get into there, everything here has a status and we're just pushing it along. So I'm going to say it's been sent and we're into accepted now, which is the status that really makes it all happen. So that will be pushing kind of outwards into the invoices and outwards into the costings screen. So if I go into the costings now, I'll have a new category for electrical. Notice it's added estimate items as though they came from the original estimate. But if I use this little up arrow for details, you can get a split, i.e. how it's come to the budget total. And it's happened because we had an original figure plus a variation figure. Another little tip here is you'll notice these are blue. And as with anything Build Exact, you can click on the blue links and it'll pop open back to the variation to give you a bit more info. Beautiful. Now that that's done, you could absolutely go and order off these or put receipts against these as it happens. It's also added items into the schedule, and I won't go in there now, but just to mention that it has done that. That brings us on to our second example. And this is more of a swap style one. And I won't go right through this one, more just to show you how you create and kind of initiate these. If I was, for example, to say the customer had, this is perfect, it's a PC item, customer has gone and picked another cooktop, I can go grab that one and turn it into a variation. And what Build Exact will do is try and figure out how much to refund. So what it's done here is go, great, you haven't spent any money on it, i.e. there's no actual figure, hence you're going to refund the whole lot. If there was an actual figure, it would be refunding or requesting just a portion of the amount. So we'll do that. Always worth a double check because if you're doing fractions of this quantity or multiples, there is ways when this can get a little off kilter. So just worth a double check always, as with anything financial, I'm sure. But I'm going to say cooktop, swap of cooktop. And really the whole idea is we've got a negative line, we've got a positive line, and I'm just going to say selected cooktop. Obviously you'd put an actual model in there. They might have gone and spent $1,400. The markup on this one's a bit of an interesting one, mainly because everyone seems to have a different way of attacking this. If your contract says, hey look, we just do markup on all variation costs, great, you can go 20%. And that's just on that one. If your contract says we do it on the difference, no worries. You can say, well, we refund the markup amount and charge the markup amount. You may say that, look, we don't do any markup at all, and obviously you can do that as well. So very much up to you how you handle that. Have a bit of a think about it, but it's really just done by choosing the markups and where they need to go. I won't go through and print all of this because you can see pretty clearly how it's thinking about it. It is really just working out the difference, and you could add more items if you needed to, but when the customer sees this, they're going to see the refund happening and also the new item going in. And the end result of all of this is that if we jump right to accepted, so jump right to the end result is a couple of things. It will, when we just refresh this page, it will put in the cooktop allowance and the selected cooktop, so it's refunded that line. My personal preference is I drag those around just so they're next to each other. And so it's balanced all of that. And like with the other variation, it's pushed into invoicing so we can go and get the money off the client or refund the money to the client as we need to. All right, that's all our variations.